Neko Case, thanks for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you.
I'm very excited. Nice to meet you too.
I'm excited to have you here. So I want to play something. This is a clip of you, your very first national CBC radio interview, 98. It was after your first solo album, The Virginian. You're talking about what's happened for you as an artist after that first album came out. So take a listen to this.
I think I write more from a personal standpoint just because I feel a lot more confident after putting out the first record. I don't know. I feel like I've finally figured out what it is I do. I feel like I belong making country music, and it feels like the right thing to do. I kind of feel like I get up in the morning and go, hey, I'm a country musician, and then I feel kind of good about it. It sounds really stupid.
So that's you 20 years ago saying you figured out, you finally figured it all out.
Yeah, and of course it's a really great place to start hearing what you thought of yourself as a 20-year-old, because it's not at all embarrassing.
You find it a bit embarrassing? Do you find it a bit embarrassing? I thought you might find
it's a little embarrassing. I mean,
I thought you might find it heartening.
I'm kind of shy, so in that regard,
yeah,
a little bit.
I thought you might find it a bit heartening. Like, do you feel like the same person?
Yes and no. I mean, I didn't realize I felt qualified then. I was probably bringing a lot of bravado with that statement.
I feel like I'm watching you kind of figure out what you just heard. I feel like I'm watching you kind of...
Scary to hear your own voice.
Yeah, for sure.
It is.
Yeah, I find it really kind of nerve-wracking.
I mean, I'll get over it. Hopefully in seconds.
I'm not going to storm out or anything like that. But I don't. Maybe the part that I found was heartening about it was that I think like a lot of people who would like feel creative in some way, like they know there's something they want to make, but they don't really know what they want to make, or they don't really know what they're good at. There was something really heartening about you hearing you say, "I wake up in the morning and I say I'm a country musician," and that feels good.
It does.
Yeah. Do you still feel that way?
I do. I think there were a lot of years where I didn't believe it. Like, I realized that back then, I was saying that to myself to make myself believe it, sort of.
Right. Like an affirmation.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And as time goes on, do you grow into your affirmation?
You do, and chance things happen, and then you believe it. And you don't have to do the affirmation anymore.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, basically, I've been thinking a lot about this, and a lot of people have been asking me about the new record, and it's still so new to me. I can't really hear it yet because I still have the producer-tuned ears, which are really harsh and are looking for mistakes still, so I can't listen to it as a whole thing because it was just mastered in like March. But a lot of people ask how I felt when I went into making the new record, and I swear to God, this totally relates to the other thing. I'm not moving on.
I'm not holding your feet to the fire here.
I know, but I just... People have asked a lot, well, how are you feeling going into making this new record? Like, how did you set yourself up? Based on several experiences, I went in feeling incredibly confident, but like a confidence I hadn't had before. Like it was very galvanized for some reason. And I think it was making a record with Laura Veers and Katie Lang, which was a lot about giving up control. 3 control freaks coming together to give up control.
That's what Katie said. She said these are 3 people who normally get things their own way.
All the time. Yeah. And it was a really, really awesome experience. And, they were difficult days or whatever, but we did it. And the songs were served, and we felt so good about it. And so then we toured that record, which was so much fun. And then right on the heels of that, I went to New York, to Brooklyn, to the first, literally in the history of humankind, Woman Producer Summit, which was a curation of women from around the world, of different age groups, from different backgrounds, who were producers. And women producers are not new, and Woman Producer is the name of the event. They like it all to be one word. But we're not new. We've always been there since technology evolved right along with technology, et cetera. But there had never been any sort of symposium or summit for women who are producers, and most people don't think of women as music producers at all.
No. I mean, that's why we had Katie first. When she first came on the show, since I've been hosting this show, which has been maybe a year and a half, it was around the time of that summit. I think it was under your recommendation that we have her on to talk about it.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
She's an incredible producer.
Yeah, well, why?
She is incredible because she knows what she wants to hear. She can hear the finished product in her head. And she knows how to get people motivated, and she knows how to explain things not only from a trained musician standpoint, she knows the mathematical language of music, but she also is a genius when it comes to feel.
Right.
So watching her, band lead in those situations was really inspiring.
Can we just play a little bit of the record before we start talking a little bit more about this? This is the title track. This is HellOn.
Contract or a guide. God is in a specified tide. You cannot time its tables. It sets no glass or gables. God is a lusty tire fire. Its bristles scrape and strike the stage. Rock, paper, scissors, rage at mercy on the natural world.
That's Neko Case with HellOn from the album of the same name. We've been talking about how you produce this record yourself. So I want to go back. So you go to this conference, the first ever conference in Brooklyn, or the first ever conference that happened to be in Brooklyn, of women producers. You
Yes.
come out of making this record with Katie Lang and Laura Veers and working with Katie, doing a lot of production there.
Yep. And Tucker Martine as well. And, Laura had a lot to do with it too, obviously.
So how do you feel differently when you walk in to make this record? How does this all kind of manifest itself in this record?
Well, as I was saying, there was the experience of working with Laura and Katie and Tucker Martine, and then going to this woman producer conference, which was the first one, and going down into the green room. It was a very small budget that they Melissa Dine and Kayla Marichich of a band called The Blow, they put the whole thing together on a shoestring budget. So we're all downstairs, we're sharing this little green room, and in those situations, normally I would be very polite and, pretty shy, honestly. And the second we all got in there, we all exploded into conversation. And we were all so excited. It's like we had all been starving. And then we took that conversation upstairs in front of a large mixed audience, and there you can know logically that representation matters, but then when there's like this very meta situation where you are the representation and you're looking at these women from all over the world across from you, some younger, some older, it's really pretty earth-shattering, like in a great way. Like I left there feeling galvanized. I felt qualified. And I realized before my confidence was based on, it was more assertive, and there was always this weird kind of patriarchal voice in the back of my mind going, did you just look like a woman when you did that?
What do you mean?
Do you think, just like where you criticize yourself a lot and you wonder if you did good enough or if you pulled it off like you didn't care about whether or not dudes were looking or, and that's a very basic.
I know what you mean, though.
Fake kind of thing. But
if you seemed like you didn't care, but by virtue that you're wondering whether you seemed like you didn't care, you care.
But now I actually don't care, which is great. No, so
I think you're telling the truth.
Yeah, I care so hard that I can't not care. But I came out of there from that experience, and I felt so okay with what I do. I was ready to relinquish more control to serve the songs. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like this record would be better if I co-produced some of the songs with this other person I've never worked with to bring new things.
Right.
Because I work with the same people a lot, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. In fact, it makes things really comfortable and really fun.
So this is Bjorn from Peter
Yes,
Bjorn.
Bjorn Yttling
I was
from
going to ask
Peter
you,
Bjorn and John.
because I have Yttling, and I'm not in the business of mocking anyone's last name.
No, I believe it's Yttling.
Yttling.
But I don't think you pronounce the Y. I do not know how to pronounce Swedish. I lived there for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
everyone there speaks better English than we do by like a lot.
Oh, no.
So there was no...
They were going to help you out. They didn't need to help
They're
you
like,
out.
no, don't sully our language. We'll just come over to you with our much more educated version of your language.
What did you get out of being in Sweden?
I got Bjorn, his connections. I got to meet a lot of really great musicians. I got to meet people from the United States that I hadn't met, you know.
Because it's a bit of a mecca, right? Like it's a bit of a... Like
It's a bit of a mecca,
Yeah.
and yet it's a small world for musicians. Like, we have all the same friends. We tour the same circuits, you know. There have been many festivals where I've played and, you know, caught a little bit of Peter, Bjorn, and John, and I've always loved their music. And I had done a lot of research as to what I thought I should do, and, you know, Bjorn's name kept coming up because I really like the projects he works on. He's a really great musician. He's a really great producer, but then also he can do things like arrange strings and horns. And
right. Like you said about Katie, that mathematical knowledge of music.
Yeah, he has the mathematical knowledge, but he also has the, you know, impulsive instinct knowledge.
Right.
So I've worked and co-produced with people for many years. Like, you know, my last record I did with Tucker Martine, this was different in that half the songs on the record I was going to take, you know, things that had been kind of laid down, bed tracks, and have plenty of tracks on them. And somebody was going to put down what they thought should be there. And ultimately, yeah, I have the veto power to go, yeah, we're going to take that off later. But I really resisted that urge. And frankly, the things Bjorn wanted on there were things I wanted on there too.
So
my research paid off. Like, I got what I was hoping to get.
but they weren't things that you would put on there necessarily
No,
yourself.
I wouldn't have like sung a weird synthesizer part through a vocoder. I've never done that before. I mean, I would if I knew that, but that was something he really enjoyed doing and something he does. And
Is that hard in the moment? Like, I think we can all agree. Like, I really like the record, and I think you like the record too. And I can tell you're listening back to it, saying like, "Well, this ended up being the right decision." But I like that so far. We're talking a little bit about like the inner conflict you actually feel in the actual second that you're experiencing something, not in the moments afterwards where you're reflecting on it. Like when he is laying down vocoder parts that perhaps you wouldn't normally have. Is there a part of you in that moment that's resisting? Like, oh no, that doesn't sound like me. That's not me.
no, it was exciting. And it was really exciting too because he's one of those musicians who's so capable, he could just get up and then suddenly go start playing on the farfisa, and it would be really exciting. And I really enjoyed that. And, you know, at some point he brought in Peter from Peter, Bjorn, and John as well, and the song Bad Luck was recorded from the ground up at Bjorn's insistence, which I was so excited that somebody had an idea for it. And on one hand, it's like this totally new realm, and you put yourself in the little cradle of somebody else's expertise. But also, it's kind of like writing prompts where if you do something even slightly different than you normally go at it, the new ideas you get just come at you like a Gatling gun is firing them at you. So, you know, it really breaks you out of doing things one way.
You mentioned Bad Luck. I think we have that. Can we play a little bit of that?
What the dog from a running dream, and that's bad luck. Made a black fly in the cream, and that's bad luck. Chip my tooth on an engagement ring, that's bad luck. Could have stopped any one of these things, but that would have been bad luck. So I got and went to work. So I got and went to work. So I got and went to work. I got and went to work.
That's Neko Case and Bad Luck. I'm sorry for grinning like an idiot while that whole time that song was playing. You looked over at me and I just realized I was just beaming. I really like that song.
Thank you.
It does feel different. Like I have never heard. I know a lot of your music. I had never heard anything like
Yeah,
that.
it is very different. And, you know, working with other people, that song I think worked so well that way because Bjorn and Peter work together so much. They have a really great instinctive thing, and they were both playing things they don't normally play. And we recorded it, live in a studio. And at one point, I remember Bjorn said, "You got to play guitar on this." I felt so cool because I'm always very shy about my guitar playing, but I felt unbelievably cool in that moment. I was going to use the F word, but I stopped myself.
Well, that's kind of you. We could have.
I meant it with the F word.
We could have bleeped it out.
It's okay.
You know what I mean? We could have done that.
There's grandmas out there, and I'm trying to be cool.
I like that thing where they put the circle over your mouth when you curse. Do you ever see that one?
No.
Like on TV, sometimes they'll say they'll say the F word.
The F word.
That F word. And not only will they bleep it, but they'll put like a circle around their mouths so we won't even be able to tell what they said.
No, because heaven forbid you should be able to read lips and know what that word looks like.
Did I hear that when you were recording Bad Luck, that's when you found out that your house had caught fire?
Yes. It was pretty much recorded, but I had to do the lead vocal the morning after. I mean, it was still on fire in the AM, so at a certain point it was kind of out, and that was on the schedule. So
can you just take me back to that?
We did.
So who calls you? Like, what happens? If you don't mind. By the way, I feel weird asking you about this because it's a pretty personal
Don't feel
thing.
weird.
All
It's
right.
okay. I mean, it's in the press packet.
Well, that's why
it happened.
Yeah.
And it was happening all over the country at the time. Honestly, Houston had flooded. I got the news my house was burning down while Puerto Rico was underwater, and then I returned to America and went to California, and people's homes were burning the whole time I was there and long after I was gone. Like, everybody was losing stuff, and worse, people were losing their lives and their loved ones' lives and their livelihoods. And it was just a communal bad time.
So what happens? Someone calls you?
I get a call that the house
what
is on
time?
fire.
In the morning?
It was like
or?
3:30 in the morning in Stockholm. And I had to calm them down and say, it's okay, it's okay.
What goes through, like, have you ever had
I
this
was in shock.
Has this ever
so
happened to you before? Like, have you ever?
I've never had anything burned down.
No.
I've had to go into fight or flight mode to, like, become a leader of a situation, but not like that. So
So what goes through your head? Do you start thinking about?
I don't even know.
Do you start thinking about? Okay, well, they got to get this out. They got to get the
No, I just wanted to know if they were okay.
right.
And they were not okay, because obviously they're super traumatized and going through this really horrible time. And the dogs were out,
Good.
which was good.
Good.
The cats were unaccounted for. Figured likely they were fine.
Yeah.
Because they're pretty savvy, those cats. But, it was impossible to know.
I'm getting like welled up here thinking about it because it's kind of like it seems symbolic to me. Like it's not just your house going; it's your things in it. It's your life. It's
Yeah, and most of it went, but there's a weird, how you can tell yourself like, oh my God, if I lost this stuff, I would die, and you feel really attached to things. Like, I'm a really sentimental person, so I had a lot of sentimental things and family photos and stuff that I don't have anymore. But there was a weird thing that happened where after learning that and going home and looking at the actual destruction, I just felt a lot of relief.
relief. How?
Because, there's a relief that you feel, and I think a lot of people feel really bad about the relief they feel when stuff like that happens, but I think the relief is you can say to yourself, things don't matter, and you believe that logically, but when it really happens, when something about your other self comes through and it really is true that things don't matter and you can let it go, that's where the relief is.
Do you feel like a different person now?
No.
No, you don't
No,
feel like
my stuff had nothing to do with who I was.
But you don't feel No, of course not. I don't mean the stuff itself. I mean, do you feel like now that you've lost things that were important, you've learned this, that things actually perhaps don't really matter at all. You can lose them and still go on. Do you feel you approach things differently?
It hasn't been long enough, and honestly, I still don't live anywhere, so I'm still deep in that, and the record too. I mean, I think we've finished mastering it middle of March, so like I said, I still have the weird producer ears that can't hear it as a finished product yet.
Right. Well, that's the thing they say about self-producing. Hey, friends of mine who have self-produced records say there's no one to tell you when it's done.
That's true, but if you trust yourself, you'll know. It's just one of those things.
It's hard. I find it hard, like just for making my own things. Like I find it hard to not tinker and add stuff all the time because it can always be a little bit better.
Yeah. That's why it's so great to be able to go work on other people's projects and kind of lose yourself a little bit and kind of get more into the play aspect of creating things rather than the
making,
controlling and scheduling and making sure.
I don't want to talk about the fire much more, but
it's okay. Really.
How do you? Thank you. How do you go back into the? I think you're more okay with the fire than I am.
It's a really scary thing.
Well, I'm having a hard time with it. I don't know why. I don't know what it says about me.
I think the fact that, I would feel very differently right now if someone burned my house down on purpose.
Yeah.
But it was nature.
Right.
There's nothing to take personally.
So
there.
When you went back in to do the lead vocal, which is not nothing. I mean, that's the lead vocal. Were you able to do it and separate yourself from what was going on back home?
I did it, because frankly, it was nice to have something to focus on that wasn't that. And then later, mixing it with Lasse Mjorten, I kind of realized that the vocal sounded really flat, like not note-wise, but just like I could sense like a little bit of kind of a catatonic vibe going on in there. And I was like, Lasse, maybe I got to redo the lead vocal. Like, I don't know. It just sounds kind of... I was like, what do you think? And he's like, maybe that's what somebody sounds like when their house just burns down.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have a good point. And then it ended up being a good counterpoint to the really kind of electric girl group backing vocals in a way. It ended up working out. And I put those backing vocals a little higher than the lead vocal. So when you in this weird opposite way.
When you listen to it now, do you hear... Oh, I remember what I was thinking about while I was doing that.
No, not at all. No? Because the song was written way before that. So I kind of think about what I was writing. If I'm able to get past the whole, did I make that part loud enough? Did that guitar get in there loud enough? Do you think people can hear it,
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, just before we let you go, about a line in the song Halls of Sara. These stuck out to me. It was, our poets do an odious business, loving womankind as lions love Christians. Well, tell me about what that line means to you.
It's about sort of thoughtless consumption and about the idea of being a muse to someone. And
someone who inspires.
Yeah, like you think a lot of... I've known people in my life and, that people write songs about, and they really use them in those songs. There's no rebuttal for the person the song's written about, and then you watch those people make a lot of money with those songs, and the person it was written about has to go to the grocery store and hear it sometimes. Like, it's got to be like a PTSD.
Yeah.
Or when people kind of use their artistic license or what have you to write kind of cruel things.
What do you mean?
Sometimes, like, well, there's a lot of songs out there that are the woman's name, and the woman is named in the song, and it'll be pretty. And sorry, I just said that S word. I'm sorry. It'll be pretty cruel, and these people are so respected for these things. Nobody ever thinks past the. I don't know if the person would have wanted to be.
Yeah.
Involved in that song yet. And then I chose the name Sara because there's a lot of songs about women named Sara.
Oh, Bob Dylan.
Yeah, and many others.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a really beautiful one, the Fleetwood Mac version, where Stevie Nicks is singing about Sara, and she honors Sara without exploiting Sara, which is a totally different thing.
It makes you wonder why, and I know like this is I don't want to delve too much into this if you don't want to, but I think there's a big conversation going on about the way we not separate art from artists, but the way we can close ourselves off from the ethics of things that we love. That we are, I truly believe that like a good song can move me in a way that is past my brain. Like
it's a reason you don't want to over-explain songs to
Yeah.
people as an artist too, because you want people to be able to wear it around like a cool vest, and it's their vest.
That's what David Lynch says, right?
cool.
I'm no expert on David Lynch, but he says that art is to be
Absolutely.
experienced and not to be explained.
Yeah, I mean,
Which is an ironic job for me to have, but
well, I very much subscribe to that and love the things David Lynch says about creativity and ideas. Like I remember, I think at one point he said, "Ideas are the best thing going," and I remember just crying, like it's so true.
Yeah.
Ideas are great, but yeah, sometimes we get a little. I don't know. I definitely was. And it wasn't about one person,
no, I get it.
not one specific thing, but, you know, there are people in my life I've known who've been totally exploited in that way.
And
And it's gross.
And there are things we do experience and we wear around as vests and we love them, and then it's hard for us to realize that maybe the person who made it wasn't a great person, and we have to deal with that.
Yeah, there's so many stories like that. Or if you even hear the story of the song and it's not what you thought it was. You know, there was something about, and this, you know, I don't feel this way now, but there was something at the time learning that Billie Holiday didn't write Strange Fruit and that a man wrote it for her. Something about it bummed me out to find that out. But now I've learned a lot more about interpretation, and that song wouldn't have meant anything without her. Do you know what I mean? So there's just, I mean, maybe people don't think that hard about music all the time, but, you know.
But I think they do.
Those roles are why you feel a certain way, or why something seems like representation that speaks to you or doesn't, or you feel put off by something. I spend a lot of time thinking about that. So
Me too. People take a lot of meaning in their own lives, whether they want to admit it or not, of the art that they consume. It can actually change your life. It can actually change your life. So that's why you see a lot of think pieces about relitigating John Lennon as a icon in music after revelations come out about him beating his wife, you know, or you know the way that people see Annie Hall now. It's gonna be hard for people.
yeah, it really is. And Annie Hall was a really hard one too, because I don't even love the movie, but I loved the fact that at the end of the movie, he says, I see her now and again. She's just such a great person. Like, I just thought it was so moving that a man took the time to say, as a human and as an individual, a singular human, this person is valuable. And I sure am glad that they're still in my life, even though they're not in my life as in I own them. Like, that meant so much to me. And now I'm just like, oh, that really didn't come out that way. And you feel grief for these things. And, you know, but it's better that they happen than if they don't happen, because everybody's been yelling for a long time, screaming it at the top of their lungs, and we all know it. And people are saying it out loud now, and there's, you know, people can use the phrase "me too" instead of saying things that are really uncomfortable for them, like child rape, you know, child abuse, child rape, rape in general. Like, it's not a word that invites people in, nor should it be. But if you can't yet say those words, you can use the phrase "me too" or many other things. But it's definitely a good thing, and I hope the momentum of it keeps building, especially so people who've been screaming it at the top of their lungs can have a moment to draw a breath and realize that they can rest in that momentum for a second and come back when they're ready.
That's where I am with it for sure. I mean, as someone who asks these kind of questions, I'm always, even just like after this interview, I'm even thinking about this now. I'm going to interview somebody else, and all I can think of is I've read 75 interviews with this person, and 75 of those interviews, this person has talked about well, let's call it Me Too, right? And I go, at what point am I actually hurting things? At what point am I actually putting too much of an onus on her, you know? At what point am I forcing her to talk about things too often?
Well, I think, for me personally, talk therapy only goes so far.
Yeah.
You can say a thing over and over and over and again, become numb to it, or you can say it over and over again, and it doesn't hurt to say it. It's more like things like going home for a holiday and like the fact that somebody won't make eye contact with you is the stuff that really hurts. But it's different for everyone. Some people can say it, and if they show up and they're willing to say it, I think you can give them the benefit of the doubt that they're there and that's what they signed up for. And there are probably other things that you wouldn't want to push with them, but you can trust them.
Neko Case, I really like talking to you.
I really like talking to you too.
Thanks for coming in.
You're very welcome.
I'm so happy to talk to you so early in the album cycle too.
I know.
You know,
It's not even out. I don't even know what it sounds like.
it sounds great.
I feel like I'm at the movies.
That early clip, I wasn't gonna ask you this, but I think I am gonna ask
You
it to
go right ahead.
Thank you. So let's talk about that 20-year-old child Neko Case we heard of on the this morning on CBC Radio. If you
I
could,
thought I was like 50 then, so
no,
I did. I was like, I'm old. I'm here.
Oh, you thought
I'm so wise, like old, like wise. Like,
I know.
I know what I'm doing.
Do you ever wish you could bottle that? I wish I could have that back. I felt that same way when I was like 21, 22. Just take a sip every now and then. I don't have
No,
to
I
live
would
it.
never go back.
So that was the question I was
Never,
going to ask you.
ever.
If you could say something to Neko Case on national CBC radio when you were 20 years old, right now, what do you think that would be?
It's really difficult. I'd be like, it's okay, little guy. Just give myself a little. You're going to be okay.
You're going to be
little
okay.
guy.
Yeah.
You're going to do so much dumb shit coming up. But you're going to be okay.
Yeah. And also like really amazing things as well, right? You may not say that.
Well, I would probably say, please be careful and don't work so hard that you don't see your life, because I did lose a lot of years to just like working so hard that I don't remember a lot of things. Like not as in like big blackouts or like gaps or anything, but little things that meant a lot to me are super hilarious times. And thank God, bandmates and other people do remember these things and they remind me and I'm like, oh yeah, that was so much fun. Mm-hmm. Or so-and-so, oh man, I haven't seen them in so long. It was so great to know them. I wonder what they're doing now. And you haven't forgotten them. It's just like your brain can only hold so much at once, or you're so focused, or I don't know. But not paying attention to my life drove me into a pretty deep depression, like right around 40. So I think I could have avoided that, or it maybe wouldn't have been so bad, but you can't go backward and say something to those people. No, I mean, I feel for that person. Who was that person then? But likely, 98, you said it was? Like, that was the year I had to move out of Canada. I was very, very, very sad about it because it was my home and, like, my community was there. Like, all these people, I'd actually gone to art school with and become musicians with. Like, it was such a important time. And having to leave that was really a bummer. But, I couldn't stay in Canada illegally. Like, that would have been bad because I wouldn't have been able to come back. So, of course, I wasn't going to do that. But the separation anxiety and sadness was huge. Like, I felt like Canada was half my country, I'd grown up right on the border, so we had CBC. When I was a little girl, we didn't have American stuff. Like, I had Friendly Giant, Mr. Dress Up. I was Canadian, I really thought I was as a little person.
Well, I think we felt that way about you too. I think we might feel that way about you too.
I'm okay with that
Yeah?
because I feel like a North American, not an American per se.
Hey, it's been great talking to you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
You too.